All right, we are so excited for our first talk from Dr. Alicia Prieto Langarica. She is a distinguished professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at Youngstown State University and the director for academic programs at the Sokolov Honors College, also at YSU. She received her undergraduate degree in applied mathematics from the University of Texas at Dallas in 2008 and her PhD from the University of Texas at Arlington in 2012. Dr. Prieto Langarica's research is in the intersection of mathematics and biology, specifically problems related to the medical field. Recently, she started conducting research in data science, mathematics education, and public policy. Dr. Prieto Langarica has been recognized with awards such as the Herney L. Alder Award for Distinguished Teaching from the Mathematical Association of America in 2019. She was also among the 3 MVPs at the Mahoning Valley Young's Professionals 25 Under 35 Award in 2017 and was a finalist for the Athena Award in 2019. Okay, without any further ado, Dr. Prieto Langarica.
Is this working? It is working. Awesome. All right. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation and like the nice introduction. For any undergrad out there, dreams do come true, because I remember watching Lisa Fauci's talk like a long, long time ago when I was a student and thinking I could never give a talk like that. And now I'm talking in front of her, so it's slightly intimidating, but I think we're gonna survive, I hope. Okay, so yeah, today I'm gonna talk about some things, but mainly what I wanna talk about is just how my life path and what has taken me here, with some examples. And if you do not care about all that stuff, there's some math problems there, so you can just wait for those. All right, so I was born in Guadalajara, which is the most beautiful city in the world. I do not care what you guys have to say. Paris has nothing on us. That's Guadalajara. It's right there, so if you've never been there, you have to take your time and go sometime there. These are pictures of my family. I come, like, this is my immediate family, my brother, my sister. This is my dad's side of the family, so it's very small. My mom has 15 brothers and sisters, so we don't fit in one picture, so that's why there's no picture there. Like, there's like 60 something cousins. It's just, yeah, it's just crazy like that. And this is me in elementary school, and a very embarrassing picture of me when we used to do folkloric dancing, which is important. Anyways, so why did I become a mathematician? I didn't know I wanted to be a mathematician. I just knew I really liked to figure out how things work. So when I was little, I'm that old that we had these kind of phones. So not the ones that you carry in your pocket, but these ones. So I always wonder why there's a voice coming. Like, how do the voice get there, right? Like, that's really puzzling to me. So I kept like finding the screwdrivers and taking them off apart and like trying to figure out where the voice was coming from. When I was like 4 or 6 years old, my mom hated that. So they started hiding all the screwdrivers because I would try to unscrew the TVs, everything. I just wanted to know how things work. So I also really like medicine, and I wanted to figure out how people work. But you know, if you're thinking about being a doctor, I was not thinking about saving lives. I just wanted to open up somebody, touch it, see how it worked, and that's it. That's as much as my interest was. But I thought I was going to be a doctor because I really wanted to figure those things out. However, I had like no ability to memorize anything. So I was really bad at math when I was in elementary school. So you have to memorize tables, couldn't do that. You had to memorize other things. I just couldn't do that. Like, I still like multiply by counting on my fingers, or like imagining a grid and then counting, because I just couldn't do all of those things. But I really like challenges. So if somebody challenged me with something, I just I like difficult things, and I was okay with knowing that they wouldn't, that it was not going to be easy, right? And some of that comes from the fact that my family, I come from a family of sports people. This is my wonderful grandfather who played for the Mexican team in the World Cup. So when I say I come from a family of sport people, I mean, yeah, like they got paid. Well, they didn't get paid that much back then. But like, he played in the 1950s World Cup in Brazil, against Brazil in the Maracanã. So he's a Mexican player. He's really famous, Max Prieto. If you want to search him, he actually has like stories and everything. So all of my cousins, they're, my brother is soccer player, and this is a basketball player, because I don't know. but everybody else was a soccer player. My sister was almost a professional swimmer until somebody told her that her shoulders are gonna get really wide, and she's like very into her look, so she decided to quit that. But everybody was really good at sports, right? And here comes this like clumsy little girl, me, that was not really good at much stuff, but I understood that you don't need to be good at things, you just need to practice, right? Because that's what you learn from sports, right? Nobody expects to grab a basketball and be LeBron James. Like, do we accept that that's just right? And nobody decides that when when you're not that good at the beginning, it's because you're not good at sports. Everybody knows if you're not that good, it's because you need practice, right? So I grew up thinking, if I'm not good at math, it's because I need practice, right? So some of those things I was very lucky to be born to that family, because any other family would not have given me, nobody liked math in my family, but they all knew if you practice something, you become good at it. So that's what I knew about myself. Also, if there's anybody very introverted in the audience, I was incredibly introverted. I could not talk to people that I didn't know. If you know me now, like Rebecca, you might think like that's not possible because I'm a mess, right? But no, like, and I think I'm really loud now and things. But no, I was incredibly introverted to the point that when I was 16, my mom asked me to go get a napkin. We were at having ice cream at an ice cream place. And I cried because I didn't want to talk to somebody that I didn't know. So that introverted. So if I could do it and I could be here talking to you and you don't imagine ever being able to do that, you will at some point. You just need practice. That's all that this is. It's just practice. Anyways, okay. In Mexico, when you go from 6th grade to 7th grade, you change schools because it's like elementary school to middle school. So it's kind of similar, but it's standard everywhere in the country. So when I went from my elementary school to my middle school, I went to a very good middle school, and I had to be on a summer program for people that were not that good at math. So in that summer program, I met a professor that had us do, he was like really irritated with us because we were very loud. So he gave us a problem that was more of a thinking problem than just write numbers really quickly problem. And I really liked it. And he really liked the way that I solved it. So he told my mom, "Ooh, she should come to the math club." And my mom, I love her, she's great, but her goal in life was for me to marry somebody rich. So she thought, "Ooh, the math club, that's great. She's going to meet an engineer and she's gonna have a great life. So you're going to the math club." And I'm this like chunky little girl that has zero interested in boys like at all, but there I go to the math club, right? So it like, how do you say that? Like it didn't turn out well for my mom because yeah, did not marry an engineer. I'm not rich and didn't marry somebody rich. But I started doing very intense summers of problem solving, right? So I was 13 when I started in the Math Olympiads, and the Math Olympiads in Mexico is for, well, here too, for students in their last year of high school, right? You start and then you go to if you are lucky enough to go to the IMO, you go on your last year or maybe the last 2 years of your high school. When I started, I won the state competition when I was 13. So I was like super young and nobody had ever won that early. I didn't even know algebra. But like my teacher back then would draw houses instead of the X's, and then it makes sense. If you put an X, I was like, no, I cannot do that. That's really hard. But if he would put a house instead of an X, I was like, okay, I can do that. That makes sense because it's houses. So yeah. So anyways, when I won that young, everybody expected, oh, Mexico's finally gonna get a gold in the Math Olympiad because we have her and she's been training in the best state in the country, which Jalisco is the best state in the country for the Math Olympiads, at least back then. So like everybody had those super high expectations of me, and guess what? I didn't even make it to the team. In my last year, I was number 7, and they take 6 people to the Math Olympiad. So I have a lot of failures during this talk, and it's not, some people talk about failure as something that if you just keep doing it, you will succeed. There's no success here. I cannot keep going. Like that was it, right? Like that was the last goal, and I just didn't obtain it. I didn't go to the Math Olympiad. I didn't go to Japan, which was my super dream of going to Japan and being the Math Olympiads. It just didn't happen for me. And it was pretty terrible. I felt really, really bad about it. I even thought I was really mad at math afterwards. I just didn't want to do math anymore because like I just felt very bitter by this. But there were other things happening that now when I look back, I think had a lot to do. I mean, yes, there was some luck there. There was some, I didn't practice as much as I should have. And there was just things that just you cannot control. But something that happened is, what is the difference between those two pictures here? Anybody can tell me a difference that you can see? The what? Gender. Yeah, somebody said gender, right? Like, this is my group of friends in high school. I hang out with a bunch of girls because, I was in high school. This is the group of friends in the Math Olympiads on the second year when there was actually another girl. But the first year, it was me and 29 guys. And they were very nice, but they were also really jerks. Like, they were really, I was going to say a bad word, but they were also really mean, right? They used to start to say, "Oh, Alicia is the prettiest girl in the Math Olympians and the ugliest. And she's the smartest and the stupidest." Like, and they would just make fun of me. And every time I would go to the board, they would make fun of me and things like that, right? And I also, from my mom's side of the family, come from this mentality that women should not be smart because smart women don't get men. So I had a very hard time like showing off. Like, if I knew how to do a problem, I always hesitated because I'm in a group of a bunch of men and me. Why would I come and try to like show them off, right? Like, so I was kind of like, there was all this other stuff happening, right? It's not to justify it. I would have failed even if those things wouldn't be there, maybe, I don't know. But the point is, like, sometimes you have failures and it happens and it's fine. This is a Math Olympia problem. This was a problem on that state competition that I won. It's a cool problem. If you don't care about my talk, think about that problem. So just everybody knows what's an arithmetic sequence? Somebody can tell me? Yeah, constant difference, right? Like a sequence that has constant, like 2, 4, 6, 8, or like 5, 10, 15, 20, like something like that, right? So try to find a long one that all of the things are prime. There you go. Now you have something to do and you don't have to pay attention to me. Well, then I went to undergrad school, to college. I started college in Guanajuato, which is that beautiful city right there. It is that pretty. It's another place you have to visit. Again, not as pretty as Guadalajara, but what can be as pretty as Guadalajara? And that school up there, that's CIMAT. So it's the Center for Research in Math. That's where I went to school. All of that place is like 120 PhDs in math. And there were like 100 students of us. Like, and out of all of those 100 students, again, there were like maybe 12 women and the rest were men. So that was not that nice either. But the women there, I learned a lot from them. We actually hung out a lot and we played soccer. We were really bad. Okay, there were a few of us that were, there's a few people there in that team that were actually extremely good. One of them was, she could have played for the Mexican team, but she decided to do math instead of doing that. But so it was really, really good. And then a couple of other were kind of good, but everybody else, we were so bad. We had a ball in front of us, didn't know what to do. Like, it was just that terrible. But we had a lot of fun. So there I learned that if you do not have a community, you can build one, right? So sometimes it's tough. There's not a lot of women, but you could build one. But it was still really tough. This school is really hard. I don't even know how to explain how hard going there was. But to say that I was taking algebraic topology on my third year as an undergrad, I don't know if that means anything to you, but it was hard. It was hard. Like, my calculus, okay, here's what I can tell you. I never learned how to do an integral, how to compute an integral, but I could show that it existed. So that's what we did on our first year there. So when I came to the US was the first time that I actually computed an integral or like found a derivative of something. We were just doing proofs and things like that. It was very abstract. It was fun, but I just didn't see the purpose of doing that math, right? And I had all the pressure from my mom saying like, okay, you're in school and like, when are you gonna get married? And when am I gonna have kids, grandkids? And what are you doing this for? And I tried to, like, I really used to like topology a little bit, and I kept trying to tell my mom, but you know, you can show that a donut and a cup are the same thing. And my mom is like, grandkids. Like, what you're saying makes absolutely no sense. I don't have grandkids, right? So I wanted to do something that could show them there's a purpose for what I'm doing. And that was important to me. And I think that sometimes as professors, we do not see that on our students, right? Sometimes for our students, it's really important to have a purpose for what they're doing. And we sometimes value math more than that purpose. That purpose is important for our families, and it is, and that's it. So anyways, really hard classes. We did have really hard classes. I failed a lot. I failed probability and statistics, computer science. Yeah, I failed all of those classes. By the way, those are the 3 things that I use a lot on my research now. So maybe failing makes you take it twice and like learn it better. So that's not that terrible. The other failure that I had is that because we were so few women in that school, you start believing that there's only room for few people. And instead of supporting each other, you start trying to compete with each other, right? I did not like that. So on my 3rd year there, that's a 5-year program. On my 3rd year there was a chance to go to the US for a summer program. And I just took it more. I wasn't that interested in the summer program. I just wanted to get out because the environment was so toxic. So listen to yourself when that happens, right? If you're in a place where you feel like, there's something here that I cannot explain, but I don't like, just find another place. There are more other places for you if you do not like where you're at right now. Okay, in one of the class that I really liked when I was in CIMAD was my OD2 class. Because it was the first time that I found like a meaning on something that we were doing. We had to do a project and we could pick whatever we wanted. And I picked this model for chlamydia. I think it was chlamydia, like one disease. And the thing about that model was that, gonorrhea. But the thing about that model is that you could actually say interesting things about the disease based on the model. And I've never encountered that before, right? Like math was just math for the sake of math. And here you could just say, if you vaccinate this many people, you can keep the disease this small. And I was like, oh my God, that is amazing. That is the coolest thing ever. And I can tell my mom, look, I'm going to save lives. I am going to be so good at this. I'm going to tell people how many vaccines to put in people and things are going to be great. And that was like, an important step between my mom and I that, I could tell her this is useful. All right. So then I moved to Texas, Dallas. I hope nobody gets offended. There's some people in Texas. Dallas is not a pretty place, but okay. It's really not that pretty. It's like a big parking lot and it's really warm. But anyways, also it's really cold in the winter. I thought that there could not be a colder place in the face of the earth when I experienced my first Dallas winter. Don't laugh because I live in Ohio now, but like that was like really hard. Anyways, I went to this REU in Dallas. And we were modeling firing patterns for neuronal networks. So this is the first time that I see math and biology, right? Like I can understand how things are working in a human person without having to kill them and opening them up. So that was kind of cool. It was an 8-week program. They paid us. It was really good. So you would think clearly that had to be a success, right? It was not, because I didn't take it seriously enough. But it could have been. It was a great program. I'm shamelessly plugging my own REU here because now we have an REU at YSU that we just got funding for, and Rebecca has some flyers right there. So if you're a 1st or 2nd year student, an undergrad in math, or just math interested, math curious, or somebody like that, get a flyer. You still have like 6 days to apply. Please apply. It's really cool. All right. REUs are great. And everybody knows what an REU is. Maybe I should have started. Everybody knows. If you don't, it's good to just say, what is an REU? But put it in the questions for the end, and we'll talk about what an REU is. It was not a success because I didn't take it as seriously as I should. And I also met a guy. And you would think that that's a success, but sometimes that's a failure, right? And sometimes I hesitate about talking about these things because I think maybe it's too personal. But I figure if somebody else in the audience is in a relationship that is really abusive and terrible, I've been there, you survive it. You're good on the other side, right? So we can talk about it in private later if you want to. So that was my plug-in for that. When I was at UT Dallas, that wonderful lady right there, Ashley, made me go to a math conference like this one. It was the Texas Undergraduate Conference, something like that. Yeah, Texas Undergraduate Math Conference. Yeah, that's what it was. And I had to give a talk. So who here is gonna give a talk today or tomorrow? Tomorrow. You nervous? Yeah, I was dying. Like I was so nervous. It was so hard. But you do it and it makes you feel better. And it's like, I met really cool people. In this talk, I met my future advisor in that conference. So you do not know who you're gonna meet. So that's really cool. And I'm glad that you're doing it. And I know you're freaking out, but you can't give the worst talk ever given because I already did that. So you're welcome. I stand up in the room and I forgot how to speak English. So I started my talk by saying, Buenas tardes, soy Alicia. And then I was like, oh shit, I'm speaking in Spanish. And it took me a while to regain my English. So I already gave the worst talk ever. There you go. Your talk is going to be better than that. So I hope you feel better. So that was pretty failure. Other things that happened when I was at the University of Texas at Dallas was that there were a lot of women in the math department, in the math program. They mainly were going to do high school teaching in math, but still, it was so nice to be in rooms doing analysis and have the people that were women. That was like the coolest thing. So I realized I need to have those kinds of interactions and those kinds of communities, and I need to build them for myself if they're not there. But there was some ugly stuff also happening. So I want to tell you the story of my first class ever in the US. And this is a true story, but it's kind of a hard story. I was not allowed to start school when everybody else started because I didn't have the results of my SATs because I didn't know that you had to take an SAT. Nobody told me. So anyway, so I took it really late. It was an ACT and the results weren't in. And I had already transferred all my classes and I had already talked to the math department there. And the chair of the math department had said that they only had 2 more classes to offer me because remember, I was in a really intense program, so they didn't even have master level classes that I had not taken before, right? So I had that letter from them. And when I went to my advisor, she said, well, you can sign up for developmental math and for developmental reading. And I was like, no, but like I already have the math stuff. She's like, no, I cannot let you take a math class because I don't know what kind of math they do in Mexico. And I'm thinking, how could it be different? It's the same math, right? But I didn't know that kind of racism because, I mean, I'm from Mexico. Everybody there is Mexican, so we don't have any problem with them. So anyways, so she finally let me take sign up for a humanities class. So I was in the class like a week and a half late. So I entered the room and they've already been having classes for a week and a half. They're reading Exodus from the Bible. That's the assignment. I'm late, so I hadn't read any of it. I mean, yeah. So I'm sitting in a room and it's a really big room. It's like 120 people and I'm in the back. And they're discussing the Exodus. And somebody in the classroom says, oh, I found it really interesting how the Egyptians used to overwork the Jews so that they wouldn't reproduce. And then somebody else says, we should do that to Mexicans. And then somebody says, oh no, because you look at those women and they just like, you look at them and they get pregnant. And then they kept saying things like how many you can fit in a car. And I was just looking around thinking, what? Like, what? Like, how is this a thing? Like, why are we discussing these things in this? Like, what? I didn't understand what was happening. Everybody there in that classroom was white. There were a couple of Asian students in the front, and that was it. Like, I was the only Mexican person there. And I did not understand what was happening. And when I left the classroom, the teacher saw me and told me, I'm really sorry. If I had known you were here, I would have stopped the conversation. To which I thought, oh, so this is the shit that you guys talk about when I'm not around? Like, so this is just normal? Like, what? Like, I didn't understand. It was really, I went home, I cried, it was horrible, but I stayed, which sometimes I don't know why I did that. I think it was kind of like stubbornness, not wanting to admit that I had made a mistake leaving my other school that was great, very intense, but you know, preparing me mathematically really well for this school that really, really didn't want me, right? Like clearly did not want me. But I stayed and I finished and I met fantastic people. So I'm happy that I did, but it was rough. Oh, that was the story of when I attended the room. I did have a full room because somebody told me, give your presentation a catchy title. That's a really bad advice. If you do, your room is gonna be full. That's a good advice. But then you'll have a lot of people in your room. I think my title was Learning to Divide because I was talking about fair divisions and game theory stuff. And yeah, the room was full and I was so nervous. It was pretty terrible. But I met my advisor and that was really good. So I moved from UT Dallas to UT Arlington. And if you're from Texas, you know that that's really not a move. Like, you know, like you just moved like 20 minutes away, but it was a move. The really cool thing about UT Arlington and my time there that was that because of my mathematics preparation, classes were not that challenging. I mean, they were, but they really were not. I had really good undergrad, so all I had to do was translate. And some things don't translate very well, but like manifold and variedad, like that doesn't translate very well. But like most of the things translate very well, the languages, so it was good. So I had time to do other stuff, like have friends, and like we had We did a lot of sports and we did a lot of fun stuff. I had a really good community. We were a lot of Latinos in that department. So we got together and we worked together and we did a lot of things. I was lucky enough to pass the preliminary exams before starting the program. So then that was really nice because I could just do research and that was like super cool. And the research that I was doing, well, my advisor was really, really cool guy. And what he did was he said, just follow me and sit with me on all my meetings with collaborators until you pick something. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And the first meeting was with somebody working with soybean plant and figuring out when soybean had this like disease. I don't eat soy. I don't care about soy. That was not interesting. Like, I mean, if all the soy in the world would die, like I didn't feel passionate about saving the soy. But then he had another meeting with another a biomedical engineer that was trying to coat implants with different proteins and figuring out which one will react better with the body. And I thought that was super cool because again, like being a doctor, but not being a doctor. So it was great. So we did really cool stuff with that. Classes were easy, I said that, but research is really hard. And you guys, some of you are doing research and you know that research is really hard, right? I didn't know what research was. I wrote about this story on the book Living Proof, which I forgot to put a picture of. So if you have not read that book or don't know what I'm talking about, search it. It's called Living Proof and it's an AMS book, I think, right? And it's really, really cool and has really good stories. But the story I wrote there was that when I met with my advisor and I said, yes, I want to do that problem, he started describing a program that was going to simulate that, looking at me and then just said, okay, let us know if you have questions. So like to me, I was like, oh, so you want me to program that thing? And I didn't ask questions because I didn't want him to like drop me as a student. But I had never even programmed anything. I didn't know what MATLAB was. I knew that it existed in my computer because that was my, like, I had seen the little icon there. So like, I literally learned how to program asking Google, how do I do this? For a week of like not sleeping and thinking that I had to have a finished product by the end of the week because that's how much time they give you for homework. So I assumed that it was the same for research because I really did not nothing about research, right? So my moral here is like, ask questions because if not, you get really bad failures, like not sleeping and crying all the time because you think you're dumb just because you don't know what is expected of you. So ask questions. Let's see if that plays. That is a real, oh, I did not become a good programmer. This is proof that I'm a really bad programmer. But this is the final result of my little program. The little dots is bacteria. The squares are white blood cells, which do not look like squares, but in my program they did. And the white blood cells are going around eating bacteria on top of an implant with a lot of rules behind it and stuff like that. So this is an implant and it's being cleaned by the white blood cells, right? Also, I'm such a bad programmer that this thing took like 17 hours to run. Yeah, and we didn't have access to the supercomputer because I was not American, so I couldn't use the supercomputer. So you find some of those challenges as well on your way, right? But anyways, that was not my dissertation. There's some math behind that. Yeah, we also did, but it was really cool to see visual stuff for me and to show my parents about it. And speaking of showing my parents things, when you choose an advisor for your undergrad or your graduate program, I think the best thing, this is my wonderful advisor, Dr. Prieto. The really cool part about choosing him, other than the math and everything, was how open he was to being culturally aware. I mean, he's from Bulgaria, I'm from Mexico, there are very different cultures. He somehow understood that, like he understood because my mom called him without me knowing. And no, this is a true story. My mom, with her very limited English, looked him up online, called him and told him that he was overworking me and that I was never gonna be able to find a husband like that. So he needed to give me a break so that I could go out. So after the first meeting with him, after that, I met with him later. We talked about math, and then afterwards he closed his books and said, so Alicia, well, how is this husband searching thing going? Because your mom is gonna be very mad at me if you don't find a husband. And I'm like, what? Because I didn't know that this has happened. So anyways, he was really open to being awesome and being, because any other person might have like not taken that so nicely. He also understood that having my parents there for my dissertation defense was important. And we do not have the walking with the rogue thing. Well, at least it wasn't important for my family because nobody had ever graduated from college, so nobody had ever done that. So that didn't mean anything, but the defense meant a lot, right? So anybody here is Latino? So when I say I had my family there, I meant like there were like 20 of us. Like my grandmother came, my mom's sister, my dad's brother, my dad's best friend, some other cousins. These are a group of kids that I used to tutor in math. Like the room was a little bit fuller than now, and that's not normal for a PhD dissertation. Like it was, and my mom had this idea that she wanted to hire a mariachi band so that when they said she passed, the mariachi band would come. And I was like, Mom, they already hate us here. Like, let's not do this. Like, there's not coming with a mariachi band in the middle of the university to like, let's just not. But anyway, they also understood that because my parents were gonna be there, I couldn't only talk math. So they did this mini exam where they drilled me in the math before. And when they came, we did the presentation with very little math and a lot of biology. So I really appreciate that he allowed me to do all of those things. And my mom did have like so much food in the room. Like, I mean, it's a Mexican mom. There were tamales, there was all these things. And my dad, even though I told him several times, had a bottle of tequila there. You're not supposed to have alcohol in a university. They didn't care. There was a bottle of tequila and everybody was like drinking. It was just, anyways. They were just being them and it was good. He was also great in helping me apply for jobs. So if your advisor is not helping you with things like this, like helping you get a graduate school, ask for it. Sometimes we as advisors are just busy and sometimes we don't think things, but always ask for things. My advisor was great and he really helped me do all of these things. There were still some failures because after the first or second year of my PhD, I really got a lot into working all the time, right? And that might seem like normal and what we have to do, but sometimes I feel like students think that at some point they're gonna find balance in the future. And I can tell you that finding balance gets harder and harder. So if you wanna find balance in the future and you wanna live your life a certain way in the future, start living your life like that right now, right? So start finding balance, start finding whatever you like to do it and respect your time. Because for 2 years I did nothing but work and that's just not good, yeah. I don't know, I was in a rush, I guess. Like I finished my PhD in 4 years. You could take 5 years. You don't have to rush through life like that. Okay, this is where I live now. So it's a little bit colder than Dallas. It gets really cold there sometimes. But it's really pretty, I really like the snow. I have 2 dogs, my Rottweilers. My parents are sort of happy. Like my dad is really happy and proud. My mom is sort of happy, except I still don't have kids. So that's, my brother also decided to become a priest. So the hell, like nobody's giving her any grandkids. And it's just, my sister got married and then divorced after a year. Like there's no grandkids and this is a very bad thing for her. This is me and my partner, the day that I became a citizen a year and a half ago. So it was a really great day in my life. Now I have a second stab of finding balance. And I'm trying, like I was telling Dr. Rebecca Garcia that you will hear from tomorrow, how like we're trying to do that thing, right? Like we're like Saturdays and Sundays, or at least Sundays is your rest day, and it's okay to do other things and have things outside work that you do. I love working with students, and that's what I do the most now. I have found a home, which is really, this is the place that I've lived for 10 years, and it's the longest time I've lived far away from home in the same place. So I'm really liking it there. So I've had some failures, but I have some successes. Some successes are like I went through the tenure process really fast. I think that's both a failure and a success. I think people should take more time to do things. I don't think anything, I think sometimes we rush through life and it's not that enjoyable if you do it that way. This is a math talk and I haven't done math. I haven't talked math. So this is a bunch of things that I do. Most of them with students, some of them not with students. So I will take any questions if you want to talk about any of those things that I do. I am trying to learn some of the stuff. Like I'm trying to learn recommender systems, data science, and artificial intelligence is what we're trying to learn. So I have a group of other professors that were just learning this stuff. But some of the other stuff I've done with some students. And it's kind of nice. And what else? I think that's it. That's the REU, so they're having fun, see? We're gonna have fun in the REU, so apply for the REU. That's my second shameless plug. And thank you for listening to me.